So this is, we've been doing a, what do you call it, sort of seascape, sort of ways the seascape scene. So this was, it was 2 demos. So this is the demo that I've been working on. It's mostly acrylic so far, so underpainted in acrylics. And then in a minute what we'll do is add, I've done a little bit of this already with other groups. I'll add a little bit of oil at the top. So that's that. And then the other demo I was going to do was watercolours. So this is a watercolour version. For anybody who's using watercolours. What I was having a look at this morning was, so with watercolour, using watercolour, you want to keep areas white, you can use the masking fluid. So I was experimenting a little bit with that this morning here. And basically, if you're not familiar with masking fluid, it's like a liquid rubber solution. Have you used it? Yeah, familiar with that, yeah. So I'll just briefly go through it a little bit. So you basically, best to use an old brush, as it can just ruin the brushes really quickly. I find that just keeping it slightly damp, just get it a little bit wet and then drain most of the water off, that helps to stop it drying out on the brush. And then you don't need too much really. And in this instance, there's a little bit of light down here. So what I'm trying to do is just almost like graze the surface and pop a little bit on. If you've got a, well, what can happen is here, this one I did earlier in the week, it's a very regular, very sharp, and I didn't particularly like that. So with these ones, I tried to do it a lighter touch and less masking fluid on to get, and trying to pick up a little bit of the texture of the paper. So the more texture the paper, the softer it's going to look really. So basically I'll pop that on, so just kind of grazing that across the surface. This one is a cream colour. The one I used to have was blue, and in a way that's nice because you can see what you're doing. But I found it wasn't working that well. It was melting in the sun when I was outdoors. So Winter and Newton are usually pretty reliable, so I've got another Winter and Newton one. So actually let that dry. It's got to dry perfectly, and then once it's absolutely dry, you can then put a wash over the top. Once the wash is dry, you can then rub it and take it off, and that's the white paper. So that's useful for anybody doing watercolours and wants to use that. It's a bit of a faff because you've got to do all this waiting and drying and things like that. So it can be a bit slow. The other alternative is try and leave some gaps, which in this one actually I just left gaps, and I really just tried to use almost like a dry brush technique. So I just just about touch the paint on the paper so that it picks up some of the texture, and I think that to me worked fairly well. And this was just white spaces left really. So different ways you can work. The other thing I did here was I splashed a bit of white paint on with a toothbrush. So I was like, hiya, hello. So that was, just to get a little bit of texture. So I haven't got a toothbrush with me, but that's quite a nice technique. So that's the watercolour version. So with the, so I'm going to go do a little bit more on this. So it's acrylic underpainting to start with, but I'll add a little bit of oil because I'm more comfortable with oil paint. These ones are water mixable oils or water soluble oils. So I just put a little bit of colour out. I'll put that out on a Tuesday, I think. I'll just need a little bit more white. This was a fairly cheap set of four on CY, where I sometimes get the materials, and they don't seem to be too bad. Put a bit more white out. So the nice thing about these over and above acrylics is that they're slower to dry. So acrylics, I quite like the idea of just putting the underpainting down quite quickly in acrylics. But when I want to blend the colours and just work a bit slower, it's nice. I like to use these. So I'll maybe do a little bit on the rocks, maybe just a bit of I mean, that green is quite nice, so quite happy to keep some of that showing through, but just vary it a tiny bit. So I think this is yellow ochre and a little bit of ultramarine blue mixed in there. I need another palette for next one. Let's just try a bit there. That's okay, maybe a tiny bit lighter. So a little bit more of the tiny bit of white and a tiny bit more of the yellow ochre in there. And what I would do is just sort of almost like pop a little bit on, but have some of that colour shining through, so that it just adds a little bit of texture. Something like that. I don't want it to get too light. So just anywhere where I can see bits of green popping through. I'm just using quite a cheap but fairly new brush. Come across here. And then in the rocks, these bits are like a pinky brown. Just clean the brush a little bit. Again, I'm going to see if I can stick with a fairly big brush. And mix a little bit of that. So using a little bit of brown, a little bit of crimson, and some white. Just to get so with oils, I tend to work with the darker colours first and then gradually get lighter. So perhaps a mid-tone, sort of in here, like that. Sometimes these bigger brush marks just simplify things a little bit. And then go a little bit lighter still. So a bit more oil, water mixed in the mix. Sorry, not water, a bit more white mixed in the mix. Just try and perhaps use the brush on its edge or its tip to suggest some sort of kind of rocky texture. Might be better to perhaps do a little bit of the darks there first. Just kind of alternating away the direction of the brush just to get some marks in. And that way, hopefully, create a suggestion of the rocky textures. Do that. And when it comes to the waves, I'll just do a little bit, maybe continue this wave here. I find it's best not to go too light too quickly. Within the picture, the waves are the lightest there. Maybe start with an off-white, so white and a maybe tiny bit of grey mixed in with it, or something like that. And then that can come along here. Again, where the paint on the nib is dry and it's showing through a little bit, I think that helps to suggest the waves a little bit. And also keeping it very nice, sharp marks, like that. And then if you wanted a really bright highlight down there, just a tiny bit of pure white in places. But yeah, not going too bright too quickly, otherwise it can flatten it out a little bit. In a way that might be a little bit too bright, not too unhappy with that. So yeah, a little bit on pressing that one. Good. Any questions or anything?
You said something about slow drying acrylic, or are there different types of acrylic?
Slow drying. Yeah, you can get.
I think you mentioned it a few minutes ago.
Maybe there is a slower dry. You can get mediums to slow it down.
Oh.
They can mix a medium. There are some acrylics you can buy that are called open acrylics. I think you can. They're open acrylics. Yeah, so I think they will really hydrate or something like that. I've never used them, just because all the ones I've got are just all ones. Yeah.
With acrylics,
Yeah.
do you know how long they would last if you've had them in your studio for about a year, 2 years?
Oh, it should be alright. As long as the caps are on alright,
Yeah.
it should be okay, yeah. Yeah, sometimes they do go up, but often it's when the cap hasn't gone on properly. Occasionally it'll go. Sometimes I've had trouble with acrylic primers where I don't know if it's been too hot in my studio and they've gone a bit gloopy. But most of the time acrylics have been alright, they're a bit blasted.
Yeah, as long as they're not dried up.
Yeah. And I have got some that are probably 20 years old, you know, just little bits left in tubes that are still usable. Yeah, as long as they're you squeeze the tubes, they're pretty right.
Oil dries up, because I had oils stored and I found them all in the parliament.
Well, again, sometimes they do, but it's usually if the
cap is
cap's not on or the tube's got a bit damaged. If a hole gets punched in the tube or something like that, it will. But I've got oils that, you know, 20, 30 years old, and certainly quite a lot of mine I bought. So, yeah, I've got some tubes over 10, 12 years old. Some colours are really expensive, so I use little bits of them.
Yeah.
Is there a marked difference between names of, like, some I've got are System 3,
Right.
some I'd say Graduate, and the others say Galleria.
Yeah, okay, so Galleria and System 3 are about the same. One's Brownies and the other is Windsor and Newton.
Yeah,
So it's just different manufacturers, but they're about the same quality. The Graduate ones are a bit cheaper, so you'll probably find you'll need more of those.
That's why that's bigger.
Yeah, you get a big tube, but they haven't got much colour in, so you'll need a lot of paint to cover it.
Okay.
So it's difficult. If you can afford it, I think the artist quality acrylics are better. So they're like a step up again, but they are quite expensive. With oil paints, I think the student quality are fine. I don't go for the graduate level because I think there's not enough colour in them in general.
Okay.
But,
So what's the difference between Series 1 and Series 2?
it's just the price of the pigments.
So just so you get more pigment in Series 2?
No, it's just that it's more expensive.
Oh,
So things like cadmiums and cobalts,
right.
they're just very expensive pigments.
Okay.
And then you've sort of been to bigger money really. Yeah, some.
It's just I bought this sap, and there's some more sap green, and the other one was Series 1, and this one's Series 2, so I don't...
Yeah, that's an artist quality one, isn't it?
Oh, right. Oh, it is, yes.
Yeah, so that's why. Probably in the
Yeah.
student quality, they're all one
Yeah.
level. So if it says cadmium, it won't be cadmium, they'll put something else in it.
Yeah.
But the artist quality will be genuine, whatever it is. That's fine. Okay, right.